been running into the back half of March where madness reigns supreme, from basketball to baseball to softball, you name it. Preston Thorne, we even have a little golf today on St. Patrick's Day, a 3-hole playoff down at the Players' Championship. Madness reigns supreme, and I'm going to go ahead and just ask in the opening segment to help for people out there, for you, for Preston, for Jen, to help me make sense of some of what I learned over the weekend.
I can make sense of this. Bill, we do a great show. We do the best sports show in the state.
Okay.
We came in number 2 last year. That's not going to happen again.
Right.
We do the best sports show in the state. You know why we do the best sports show? Because we presented this exact scenario on Friday, and everybody was like, oh, there goes those early game guys again, cutting up. They're not serious. No, we are serious. There is things that can happen, and sometimes we just happen to be 100% correct right on the dial whenever we predict the future. It happens more often than we give ourselves credit for. And I just want to say, we do the best sports show in the state, and sometimes in doing the best sports show in the state, you might get things right. Bill, we got this 100% correct.
Okay. All right. We will discuss not just the NCAA tournament, but the decision by South Carolina to turn down the NIT. Now, let me admit this. I didn't think that decision was going to be theirs. This is where I was wrong. This is where I was very, very wrong. I'm a little baffled. We'll read Lamont Paris's explanation and go from there on that. But if the SEC goes out and find the fact that LSU, this isn't just a South Carolina thing either, because if you missed it,
no, it's not.
LSU turned this thing down too.
And Indiana.
Well, India
and Pittsburgh.
True. Well,
and Northwestern.
Yeah, many of them.
And Wake Forest.
Many of them did, but it was the fact that the SEC went out and basically brokered a deal to get two more teams guaranteed spots in the postseason. And I thought Greg Sankey would be on the horn with Jeremiah Donati and Lamont Paris being like, you guys are playing in this thing. And that is if we just start the show there and we'll move to the South Carolina side of things after that, that was the one that surprised me the most, because I thought there was no way the SEC would be like, yeah, we got a deal in place, buddy. You, with however many players you got and with whatever you got, are playing in this bad boy.
Yeah, but what we don't know is if Jeremiah Donati was on the phone called the other way on a conference call from Greg Sankey, and Sankey might have given him the instructions explicitly not to play.
Or that.
Because he could have made a deal before, and he's like, this is not what I had in mind when I made that deal.
It's true.
So this is fascinating, because I would say this is the first major decision of the Jeremiah Donati era.
Yep.
So this is interesting. So I don't know. But yes, going back to the point that we do a show on Friday, and yeah, unfortunately, Bill, you did explicitly say that they cannot turn this down.
Yeah, I thought that there was no way that the SEC would allow. Maybe you're right. I guess I haven't thought about it from that angle. I thought about it from about a million different angles last night, because I put something out on Twitter. And it was, I will say, it seemed 50-50 on whether people agreed with me or not, which was very interesting too. We'll get into the specifics of it throughout the morning, but we have an NCAA tournament now. We have a bracket. I'd love to be discussing South Carolina in that and not turning down an NIT invitation, but here's where we are with this.
Yes, we would love to be discussing that. However, if we had to discuss something else, what a great option B. I fell to my knees this weekend, Bill, and thanked the content gods.
Okay.
Because they blessed us this weekend. So much awesomeness happening to the University of South Carolina this weekend that you couldn't be more thankful than all of the things that were happening to us. I mean, we had bad losses. We had missed seedings. We had turning down invitations. Nothing that a good old morning show on a Monday morning would not be so excited for. So everybody, let's just take a minute to thank the content gods, because they have blessed us and they have fed us for a while. We can stretch this for a minute.
There is that. We do not lack content for you.
Thank you, content gods.
If you're worried about us coming in and talking about Thanksgiving or Easter recipes or a clothing apparel or something of that nature, we have more than enough content. From basketball, go on to baseball, where baseball on Friday night looks not very good, and you're wondering, okay, maybe this team against quality competition is in trouble. Saturday, however, they look very good. They rally. They win 11-5. Yesterday, it looks like they're going to win the series. It looks like they're going to win the series, and that all will be forgiven, and that Paul Maneri's first SEC series as a Gamecock head coach is going to go as planned. And then you blink, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah. Another first. First pulmonary SEC loss of a series. First extra inning loss.
Yep.
We could build so much content.
There's a lot to.
Again, we don't want to be in here celebrating a loss, but if we had to lose, what a way to do it.
You're happy about that? Okay.
I'm not happy that we lost, but I'm saying I'm happy that it happened the way it did.
And the Saturday win was a confident one.
That's
it was that was good.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, on Saturday you watched it and you were like, oh, okay, all right, that's better. Now we're ready to roll. And then Sunday you were like, we'll see where it goes.
Only thing is, content gods, we're gonna need some of this maybe in like June.
Yeah,
when it's real dry out here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to circle back. Let's go to positive again. That was the negative. A lot of negative there to start. Positive, softball loses on Friday night, Preston, 7-3, and you're like, oh, all right. Well, that was enjoyable while it lasted. Hey, they rally 2 1-run victories, walk it off against Georgia on Saturday afternoon, 4-3, and win yesterday 3-2. And they take 2 of 3, and they hold steady with their top 10 ranking whenever the rankings come out today. So good job by the softball team. And then, of course, late last night, I say late, it was after 8 o'clock. It was late for me. Was holding on for dear life. The women's basketball team, we learned their seeding. We learned their path to the NCAA Final Four in Tampa. And, yes, UCLA lands the number 1 overall seed, but South Carolina leads the women's field via Vegas's standpoint. I like that one better.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. Were they misseeded? Did they get it right, properly rated? Obviously, Coach Staley and crew feel differently. I tend to lead on head-to-head. So I don't know. I think this is an interesting conversation.
Okay, so we'll get into that as well as they will get going coming up here on Friday at 4 o'clock against Tennessee Tech. They will be in the Birmingham Regional. That's another piece to this puzzle because Birmingham, not a bad drive for fans if they want to go down and catch the Gamecocks in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 before making the trip down to Tampa. And we'll go through who they've got to go through both in their in their particular regional, as it's labeled regional number 2. We'll talk about who they got to go through and who they may have to go through in the Final Four to reach the national championship. So a lot to unpack there again as we get up and get going here on a Monday morning. Again, if you want to be part of the program, 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in, which several of you guys are already doing. Joe agreeing right off the bat with Preston. You guys are the best morning show.
Thank you, Joe.
Hands down.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Richard weighing in. I still don't know how my North Carolina Tar Heels made the tournament. There is that. We have a lot to unpack from the NCAA tournament in and of itself.
Hubert Davis just said, don't worry. I know a guy. I know somebody that can get us in. You know when the line is real long at the bar or the club, and you're like, I know the bouncer.
Yeah.
I got somebody. Don't worry. We're going to get in. We're going to get in. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and Jeff weighs in. Surprised the SEC didn't make us play in the NIT. Agreed with Bill that we weren't going to be able to refuse it. So, yeah, there was a lot on that from the weekend. But we'll get into unpacking it. We'll start with the NIT news. I was surprised when it came out last night. I was really, really surprised. I'm going to need your help this morning trying to unpack some thoughts and some feelings on that as to whether it was a good decision. Lamont Paris has got something out there that we'll digest a little bit. A lot to do this morning. Jamie Bradford set to join us coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll talk a lot of baseball with him and get into some basketball as well and then break some other things down as we roll along. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It is the early game. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market. That's right. It was a fabulous weekend. We've got a lot that we're going to discuss, but it all started on Friday with a beautifully grilled steak and a little bit of salmon on Saturday. And all of it came from Old Timey Meat Market and the Lexington store. Now, you can go visit the South Congaree store or the St. Andrews Road store in Irmo, but wherever you visit, you're going to get that incredible non-grocery store meat buying experience. And whether you're looking for steak, whether you're looking for chicken, whether you're looking for salmon, whether you're looking for pork chops, they have you taken care of. And let me tell you, it is the absolute best cuts of meat at the absolute best prices. And whether you're looking for a great meal or you're looking for a great meal or a great item to cook the meal on, you're going to find incredible Traeger grills there as well. So go visit Old Timey Meat Market today. Again, South Congaree, St. Andrews Road in Irmo, or the Lexington store where you're pretty much guaranteed to run into me. Stop by Old Timey Meat Market today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
One accident to make you aware of this morning, Paget Road at Trotter Road. Aside from that, so far, the Monday is going fairly well. 64 will be our high today, 74 tomorrow under sunny skies. More spring-like conditions continue on Wednesday, sunny and a high of 80. But right now, it's not too bad for, Monday morning, 58 on 107.5 The Game.
Up and Adam, 6:17 here on your Monday morning, St. Patrick's Day. If for those of you that are into that kind of thing, maybe some of you are. Maybe you just over-celebrated the weekend, and now it's just a regular day for you, and you're trying to recover from your St. Patrick's celebrations. But get up and get going here as we will roll through this hour. Jamie Bradford set to join us coming up in the next hour, and we got some Thorns, Buds, and Roses in hour number 3 that I feel like you just teed up for.
Oh, man, what a weekend. What a weekend.
So you got the NCAA tournament. We now know kind of what exactly is going on there. But what was interesting last night was not the fact that South Carolina didn't make the NCAA tournament. It was that they were gifted, and that's what it was, gifted an opportunity to play in the NIT. And there's so many different angles to this. And again, I'll repeat, I was wrong. I was wrong on Monday, or excuse me, Friday. Today's Monday. And I just didn't see a way that the SEC, who had gone out and basically created this, right, Preston? That was, to me, what it was. The SEC basically went out and was like, all right, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure our teams are in postseason play. We're going to have 2 teams that it doesn't matter what, they are in the NIT field after everybody makes the NCAA field. Now, there's no way that Greg Sankey, when they were doing this, went, yeah, we're going to have 14 teams get in the NCAA and 2 teams with a combined 5 conference victories be the only 2 that got left out.
Yeah, that wasn't the plan. But we don't know how this happened, because I'm starting to wonder if the NIT didn't create this.
Okay.
Saying like, hey, SEC, please, what do you need? What do you need? We'll do anything. Just send some of your teams to our
That's fine, yeah.
our little tournament. You need exemptions. You need to host. Whatever you need, we just need some folks to come, because I'm looking at this and nobody wants to go to the NIT. And I'm wondering whether or not it's the NIT that created this. The SEC finally like, what? All right, fine, whatever. We'll send 2 of our representatives. Obviously, nobody expected it to be this, but I'm really interested now to see how this whole process came along.
There's so much to unpack from all of this. Number one is the change in 20 years, really, Preston. In 20 years since South Carolina made the early portion of the 2000s, the NIT part of our usual March viewing with Dave Odom constantly just dominating the NIT.
Are any of those fellas, Carlos and Aaron, are any of those fellas secretly celebrating because there will be no more South Carolina NIT champions? They're the last of the breed. Are they secretly celebrating?
Essentially, yes.
Like the 72 Dolphins?
Yeah, I guess. They yesterday popped champagne and did all that. Yeah, last team to win an NIT championship. But I'll start with that. I am now surprised because, listen, last year we had no reason to pay attention to the NIT. 2 years ago, we really had no reason to pay attention to the NIT. So this is the first time the NIT has popped back up on my radar in a while, and it was for all the wrong reasons, right? All the wrong reasons. We weren't even paying attention to the NIT last Wednesday when South Carolina was eliminated. It wasn't until, I think it was Thursday afternoon, we were like, wait, what is a possibility?
Late Thursday afternoon, yes.
This is a real thing? All right, cool. What's happened to the NIT? Let's start with that. What's happened to the NIT where, as you just mentioned, how many other teams said, nah, we don't want to be a part of this?
Let's go through them. Indiana.
All right, now Indiana's having a coaching change.
Pittsburgh.
Not having a coaching change.
Had a better record than us. Northwestern.
Have no clue what Northwestern did this year.
Shout out to Ryan Helinski. Wake Forest.
Surprised by that.
Rutgers.
The 2 of their guys are declaring for the draft, but still a little surprised. I mean, again, I'm surprised.
And us and LSU.
So was that 5 or 6? Did you just give me 6?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Mm-hmm. Indiana, I do get because of the coaching change. Wake, Rutgers, I would say I kind of understand behind them because Ace Bailey and Harper, I believe it is. Or is it Dylan Harper?
Yes.
Dylan Harper are heading to the NBA. Us, LSU, if we had winning records and we opted out, that's the next part of this story is why exactly, and we'll get to more of that. But, Preston, is this now what the NIT is now just, if you're not in the NCAA? We talk about the bowls being irrelevant, bowl games, but is the NIT become this irrelevant?
Oh, the NIT's cooked. There are 2 Power 5 teams. according to football standards. Now, I know basketball standards are a little bit different. You have the Atlantic 10 except blah, 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 blah. But there's not a lot of teams that were considered in the new age of college sports. There are two major teams, Stanford and Georgia Tech, I believe, that are playing. Now, yes, there's some other teams from the Atlantic 10, St. Bonaventure.
Oklahoma State is in it as well.
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
What does Mike Boynton do with that? Because Michigan's did very well this year.
He's like, see, maybe it wasn't me.
Oklahoma State is the NIT. Okay, so 3. Not a lot of teams are going to this tournament. And so the NIT is going to have to figure out what they want to do. But listen, we don't want to be discussing the NIT because that's nowhere that we want to. We don't want this to be having this discussion next year, right? And so I think what you're saying is we have a lagging perspective on what the NIT is, and the industry is telling us, hey, this is not something that teams with higher aspirations want to go and do for whatever reasons.
So then I think the question becomes, where has that come from? Or why is that? Because I personally, and again, all this is just personal opinions, I don't believe that you're getting a jump start on the transfer portal or anything like that. I think that it's all teams are starting transfer portal processing today, if that makes sense. So like even the teams going to the NCAA tournament, you can't just lag behind. Yes, is it more work? Is it more hours in your day focused on getting ready for an NCAA tournament game? But you can't. That doesn't mean the portal waits on you.
Bill, as to continue our club analogy, there's always a back door. And yes, the front door of the transfer portal may open today, but the back door has been open for a while.
That too.
And so I would imagine teams have been busy. I don't know if we're amongst them, but teams have been busy in the secret portal. The portal of the
secret portal.
Yes. The secret of the portal.
The VIP room of the portal.
Correct. The red velvet rope of the portal. Club portal.
So there's that. And then I think there's the third part to the current conversation. Would we look at this differently if South Carolina had just missed out on making the NCAA tournament? I would. I would actually understand it more if they had just missed out on making kind of Indiana again is an entirely unique case because of what they're doing. But if South Carolina just misses out on the NCAA tournament, how differently do we view declining the bid?
How do you view it differently?
That I would understand.
Okay.
I actually would understand that because to me it feels like there's something to go and play for to prove here. I don't see it as you have anything to lose. You're 12 and 20, 12 and 21, I believe, 12 something like that, 12 and 20. I know you got 12 wins, but you go out and win the thing. It doesn't really validate a bad season or conference, but it is something to take home and feel a little bit better about. I think this is me, and I can see where people would go the opposite. If you lose in the first round, and they would have hosted, and they would have been a 4 seed. And this is me guessing a little bit here because we don't know precisely where they would have been at. But odds are they probably would have been in something like the Dallas Regional in the Oklahoma State spot, hosting like Wichita State tomorrow night.
Shout out to Steve. I don't know if you listen, but you nailed it on Friday. He said, we don't want to go get mopped up by Colgate or somebody along those lines. And Steve nailed it. And I think that's what you have to lose is that you could accept this invitation, and not only are you going to the party with the losers, you're the losers of the losers. And nobody wants their program to be looked at in that light. And so I think when you say there's nothing to lose, yes, pride, dignity, and sometimes, yes, again, as I've stated, sometimes it's better to be thought of as a loser than to actually have your loser confirmed. Because now we can just lean on, oh, man, we played in the SEC. It was real tough, 14 teams. What a great conference. Hey, a lot of competition. We were better than you think. That's a better argument than going and getting eliminated in the second round to St. Bonaventure.
Okay.
Or somebody, whoever that is. So I when you say there's nothing to lose, there's something to protect, I think.
Okay.
I think.
like I said, I'm not sure I agree with that, but I understand it. I get it. I'm not going to argue with you on that. 803-404-6100. We got plenty of baseball we'll get to. We're still trying to unpack this, so we'll stay on this, and we'll come back a little bit to Lamont Paris's reasoning. He put out a statement, and I respect it. Look, this is the other part. He had a statement ready to go, so they knew what was coming. It wasn't like it's at 5:30 when the NCAA basically, I guess, sent out maybe some text messages because, by the way, if you were following the story, the news of South Carolina declining the NIT invitation came before the NCAA released their bracket.
Spoiler alert.
So the biggest part of that was Texas is in. That's how I actually read it at first. I was like, oh, okay, this meant Texas got in. We'll talk about what Lamont Paris had to say and I dive into this a little bit more. A lot of baseball to come up, too, later on in the show. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for Love Chevrolet in Harbison, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. We're rolling in to spring, and you know what? Those spring-tacular deals over at Love Chevrolet, exclusive to Love Chevrolet, are going on. They're red hot, and now is the time to get over to Love Chevrolet and check out that 14 acres of brand-new Chevys, the incredible deals, including the $1,000 low-price guarantee, which means you can shop other dealerships, take their deal back to the folks at Love Chevrolet, and they will top it, or they'll write you a check for $1,000. Hasn't happened yet, won't happen anytime soon. So stop by today, or you can visit them on the web, lovechevy.com. But stop by and check out that 14 acres of brand new Chevys and find the car, truck, or SUV that you have been looking for and take advantage of the springtacular sales that are going on now. And, of course, don't forget about that phenomenal sales staff. So courteous, so knowledgeable, so ready to help you. So get out to Love Chevrolet today, and together, let's drive.
Just one accident to let you know about Paget Road at Trotter Road. So I hope things are moving along fairly well for you this morning. 64, that will be our high. Then it starts warming up again and we get those more spring-like temperatures. 74 tomorrow, 80 on Tuesday before we dip back into the 60s. Right now, though, 58 to start your morning on 107.5 The Game.
.634 here on a busy morning. We'll talk some baseball. We'll get into that. Want to remind you about our Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. If a South Carolina batter hits a Grand Slam, you could win all the cash in the pot. Right now, that pot, $150. No Grand Slams over the weekend, so we'll get you ready for South Carolina and College of Charleston coming up on Tuesday night. We'll have that right here for you on 107.5 The Game, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. But go to our website, 1075thegame.com, and get signed up for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway, where, again, if South Carolina batter hits a Grand Slam, you could win the cash, and right now that cash is $150. Just go to 1075thegame.com and get registered today. Again, we'll talk plenty of baseball, a lot going on there as they lose the series 2-1 to Oklahoma. But talking a little bit of basketball right now and what kind of transpired yesterday, it is interesting, Preston, because as I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I wonder how much we'll talk NCAA basketball tournament and brackets and bracketology. Oh no, we're not going to talk that at all. I see all, if I was about 5:45, I think about 5:40, somewhere there, maybe 5:50. It was like, that's not what we will be discussing tomorrow. We will be discussing South Carolina's decision to turn down the NIT bid. And at first, you're kind of wondering what happened. And then Lamont Paris puts out a statement yesterday, Preston.
He does put out a statement, and I want to make sure that I read this verbatim. So in case you're not on the internet, thank you, congratulations. Lamont Paris. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the NIT and the exciting opportunity it provides for good teams to continue playing for a championship. Unfortunately, due to some attrition on our roster with injuries, we decided it was best not to participate this year. This year we competed in one of the best conferences in college basketball history! ! While we did not reach our goal of making the NCAA tournament, I am, however, extremely proud of the effort and determination our guys played with all season. Much sincere thanks to our dedicated fan base for its outstanding support of our guys! ! We will build on that and start our work immediately as we look to make a return to the NCAA tournament in 2026. That's where the exclamation point should have went. It should have went at
the very end.
As we make a return.
Good point.
He just put a period there. Supposed to put an exclamation point at the end of that.
Which, yeah.
But there was an exclamation point at the best conference in history. So that was Lamont Paris's statement. I've been frantically searching for a Matt McMahon statement from LSU. No statement so far.
Frantically searching.
I've been searching.
Let's start with this. I'm glad he put out a statement.
Okay.
I really that was. Again, it tells me that this had been in the works. This wasn't a last second kind of thing, and like Lamont had to be like, hey, write something up real quick for me to put out on the old Twitter machine. So he knew, he was aware of what was going on. I do wonder, again, you hear him say that injuries. All right, he mentioned injuries. Do we not know of any that we should be aware of that we did not know of a week from Wednesday?
Maybe. Miles Studi, we know that one.
Yeah.
CMB was banged up a couple of games ago, but he did play the last game.
So we said I think Thursday. I think we said after the Arkansas game, I expected things to move rapidly kind of with this program and to learn the fate of a few players here and there. I wonder if those conversations were had Friday and Saturday. And that, because there was a word in there, attrition.
Mm-hmm.
Attrition, which means players left or are leaving.
Attrition means that there are spots that were on the roster that are no longer on the roster. We don't want to speculate and say if players left. We just know the roster doesn't look the same as it did.
And so I wonder if conversations were had, because this would also make sense. Now, this would make perfect sense if conversations were had. Again, I'd also like to know the moment that Lamont Paris was informed that they were still in play for postseason play. Like, even if it was followed with, you're still eligible, but you're not going. Like, if Jeremiah Donati or Greg Sankey made that call, was like, hey, just FYI, you may see this on the news that you're going to be eligible. Don't worry about it. You're not going. But I expect by the end of this week that we will have news on players and what some of the futures hold. Colin Murray Boyles, again, might be the one that waits a little bit longer because I think there's some NBA stuff that he can work. As a matter of fact, he can declare for the draft and then elect to come back. You're almost not in a bad – I'm going to say this and it sounds like in a bad way. He almost has you hostage a little bit as to what he wants to do because of the way the thing is set up.
Yeah, for sure. Either you want to kind of actually hear that he's going in the draft, now that you just said that, because at least he's not going somewhere else yet. So, yeah, if you hear him say that he's declared for the draft, that's not the worst news.
And quite frankly, here's the other part. He will, or should, by the way, declare for the NBA draft. It's the thing, he could come back. Like, you've got that new rule where you can declare technically every year and get some grades and get some stuff and find out where your status is. So it would be actually quite shocking if he didn't declare within the next week. But then the question is, does he leave the door open to returning, or is he set on leaving? That'll be the big question. The rest of them, you have to wonder, all right, what conversations were had? Maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. I don't know. Dawn Staley said last week, and maybe somebody who has a child there, maybe you work over there. I don't need anybody else's. Spring break, the actual school spring break was
last week. Yes.
So I say that because Dawn Staley made the joke about giving the girls all 4 days. I don't know if, like, on Thursday morning, Lamont's like, look, I know y'all are going out of town. Let's knock out these meetings. Let's go ahead with whether it's 4 or 5 guys and be like, let's go ahead and get these meetings, and you tell me what your plans are, and I'm going to tell you what my plans are for you. And that led to attrition.
Yes. I would assume that's the attrition we're talking about. Even though he tried to throw in their injuries in there, I feel like there's a little bit of a difference between injuries and attrition. And attrition would be whether people were leaving voluntarily or whether they were being politely asked to make new plans.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. Kentucky Joe weighing in. North Carolina got into the tournament because the president of North Carolina is the head of the selection committee.
Again, man, it's always easy to get in when you know a guy. If you know the bouncer to the club, you can get in the club.
Steven weighed in and asked, who were the other injuries other than Miles Stute? Yeah, we didn't know the answer to that.
To be determined.
So there you got that. 803-404-6100. We'll get into more of this as we roll along. And Preston wants to ask you a question. What's your go-to for declining invitations?
I just need to know how everybody declines invitations. I feel like this is a life skill that we all have to learn.
We'll get into that a little bit. 803-404-6100 is the early game. Bill Gunner for Corley Pool Solutions. Look, the season is turning. It's going to be beautiful spring weather soon, and then it's going to be nice, hot summer weather. And is your pool ready to be used? You need to go ahead and start having it maintained today. Not in 2 weeks, not in 2 months. You need to call Tracy Corley and Corley Pool Solutions today and line up your maintenance. 803-445-8109. It is more affordable for you to use Corley Pool Solutions than for you to try and maintain the pool yourself. Find out. Give them a phone call, 803-445-8109, because at Corley Pool Solutions, they believe in providing the absolute highest quality swimming pool service at the most affordable price to you and your family, and they do that with flat rate pricing. Give them a phone call, 803-445-8109. Speak with Tracy Corley. He's been in business for over 20 years. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's ready to help you. Tell him Bill Gunner sent you. Reminder, coming up a week from Friday, March the 28th, over at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. It is our spring golf tournament, the 107.5 The Game Spring Golf Classic this year in partnership with the Lexington County Gamecock Club. You need to call and get registered today. Secure your foursome, 803-755-2000. Again, that's 803-755-2000. We'll have the par 5 golf ball cannon. We'll be giving away some baseball and football season tickets to 2 lucky winners. And we'll have plenty of guests, including Alex English being out there as well. So come on out and hang out with us. That is not this Friday, but the following Friday, the end of the month, Friday, March the 28th at Charwood Golf Club over in West Columbia. Again, call today, get registered, get your foursome signed up, 803-755-2000. That's how you do it. This is not an invitation that you would want to turn down. Not something you want to decline. You want to be there for this, right, Preston?
Yeah, I think that's what you want to be there. Yes, you want to enthusiastically say yes.
Yes.
You don't want to give any of your flim-flam, mealy-mouth maybes to this invitation. You want to enthusiastically say yes.
All right. So what have we got here?
803-404-6100. What's your go-to way of turning down an invitation? It's a life skill. You have to figure this out. People invite you to things. Sometimes you don't want to go. What is your go-to way to turn down an invitation?
And can I just say that when it's important to RSVP to say you're not coming, it is also important to say you are, because I think that is a lost art. People are just like, well, I'm not going to say anything. And then people are trying to prepare. So, yeah. Anyway, my PSA for the morning.
This is very true. As I've advanced in age, I do realize the importance of the RSVP. Mm-hmm. It is extremely important. So the NIT sent out the save the dates for all the teams, and all the teams were like, nah, don't think so. Don't think we're gonna be applying. So 803-404-6100. What is your go-to way of declining an invitation? Do you hit them with a maybe? That's always a good one. You're like, maybe I'll see. Or do you give them a I'll see?
Ray weighs in. Let me check with the wife.
There you go.
Equals I'm not coming.
That's a solid one. My wife and I have made a bond that we can always blame it on the other one. So that if in case of emergency, you could always just blame, my old ball and chain.
Yeah.
Can't go anywhere.
Michael weighs in. Before I decline an invite, I ask who all's coming or who all's over there.
That's exactly what.
And that's one of the most insulting things that you can do, because it's like, okay, if my guest list isn't good enough, then you're not coming. So just don't bother.
And Michael says that he says calling the wrong name will put me on the injured reserve.
Well, safe. There you go.
That's exactly what South Carolina did and LSU did, right? Who all gonna be there?
Well, and pretty much, I just wonder if they
St.
talked.
Bonaventure?
Did they say, are you gonna, say I'm not coming? Are you gonna say, cool? Okay, we'll do it together.
Side text. Mm-hmm. We got any others coming in?
Yep.
Todd goes with, I already have another engagement scheduled, but thank you.
Nice.
It's
the pleasant thank you at the end it doesn't hurt as much on the front end. Oh man, let me check my calendar. That's another good one. I have tended to lean on let me check my calendar. I don't check my calendar and I don't get back to you.
Okay, and that I was gonna say, let me check my calendar and I will get back to you. Then please do get back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Jacob goes down my path. He says, I had kids for a reason, and somehow they've got something going on during that time.
Solid. Always solid.
I typically go, usually my kids are keeping me pretty busy.
I'm here, there, everywhere, man. It's tough.
I'm here, there, everywhere. 803-404-6100. Preston asking you this morning, how do you decline an invitation?
Listen, man, this is something you have to figure out as you advance in age, right? You have to figure it out all your life, because even this kind of starts in high school. We're like, hey, man, you coming? And you're like, my parents, that was always something that was always a good one. My parents, my dad, man, he doesn't let me go out anymore. Even though you could have went, but you didn't want to go.
Let's see. I don't know if a lot of you got like me. Like I stupidly make plans way in advance, thinking that's a good idea, only to arrive at 2 or 3 days before. I was like, I'm tired, not really in the mood.
Yeah. Then what do you do? That's the tough one, and that's what I was just since we're declining an invitation here. It's
what you do. You're answering it. You're hitting the nail on the head.
Just figure out the different way. I'm just interested in all the ways that you can decline an invitation, because we clearly have sided. NIT, nah.
Yeah.
Not gonna. Who will be there?
Interesting.
Let me
Interesting
look at
again.
the NIT bracket.
Last night, yeah, that NIT bracket really is it's something. There's not a whole lot of teams there. You go back to the teams you mentioned that declined it: Wake Forest, Rutgers, Pittsburgh, Indiana, South Carolina, LSU, and I'm leaving one other one off of that list. The three power conference teams, if you will: Georgia Tech and Stanford from the ACC, and Oklahoma State being the other one.
Yeah, they're going to get to the party and look around for all of their Power 5 homies, and they're going to be like, hey, Wake Forest, I thought you said you were coming. South Carolina, I thought.
Yeah.
They're sending South Carolina a text right now.
And that's being left on red.
South Carolina, I thought you said you were showing up. What happened?
The importance of the NIT, to go back to this, is kind of what kind of blows me away. And it's fine. It really tells me, and Jen, we kind of brought this up last week, the NIT no longer even at Madison Square Garden. It'll be at Hinkle Fieldhouse.
Which
Butler,
is a cool venue.
It is a cool venue.
It is, and there was a reason they did that. There was a reason they moved it there last year. I think it was in Vegas last year. But the NIT is an event that I feel like South Carolina fans, more so than the majority, are familiar with, and I thought we held a little near and dear to our heart, and I guess we don't. I guess I'm a little surprised by this.
05 and 06 was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Looking at the brackets, yeah. Loyola Chicago, who wants to party with them? San Jose State, Utah Valley.
Remember who we had to beat? Florida State. We had to beat Georgetown. Syracuse.
Yeah, those are teams that we party with.
Cincinnati had to beat them.
Who is CSUN? Do you know have any idea who that is?
I will have to look it up.
That's who Stanford's playing. CSUN.
We'll see if I can figure that one out on my own. Hour 2 on the way.
Hey, it's Jen for CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. The demolition we had to do in our kitchen. We had to gut it completely, had a flood in there. They guided us through choosing all the accessories, laying out the design. And then we got the photorealistic rendering that I keep bragging about, but it was so helpful because our kitchen was completely finished in that picture. And we could take that image and pick out other elements that we needed to complete the kitchen. But kitchens, that's not all they just do. Now that you can just do simple things like putting drawers in your pantry and making that more functional, that's definitely helpful. But maybe you have a closet that is just a mess. You'd like to get rid of those wire hanging racks. They can help you with that. Put some drawers in those closets as well. If you're looking to make some updates in your home, maybe create a home office workspace, visit chwcabinetry.com. Call them today at 803-520-6837. And of course, be sure to tell them Jen Jensen sent you. CHW Cabinetry, passion from inspiration to installation. And we do have a couple accidents that we need to make you aware of. I-77 northbound. That's up in Chester County, but just be aware of it. Left lane is blocked, so you will want to stay right. Also, Paget Road at Trotter, getting that cleaned up. And Syrup Mill Road at Woodlander Drive, kind of in the Blythewood area. That is another slowdown that you might encounter in your morning travels. And as far as your forecast goes, 64 is what we're looking at today. Tomorrow, sunny, 74, 80 on Wednesday. A couple of showers on Thursday, high of 67. And we round out the week, 65 on Friday. But a reasonable start to your morning, 58 right now on the early game.
Seven a.m. That's right. We declined to take 2 hours off. We accepted doing the full morning show this morning on a St. Patrick's Day as we get you up and get you going here on March the 17th. Hopefully you're out and doing well. Maybe you were trying to recover from what really was with the storms yesterday yesterday morning. Entertaining.
So here's the problem with March. Tornadoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that might be keeping March from being my unanimous number one seed is that tornadoes, no good.
Okay.
No.
And what is it? Is it in like a lamb, out like a lion, or vice versa? Is that March or is that April?
That's March. Yep.
That's March, yeah.
In like a lion, out like a lamb.
That's, yeah.
Allegedly. But we're in the middle and roaring. So, yeah. That's the only reason why March can't be the number one seed is because tornadoes are not a good weather, the worst weather event in my
Yeah, no kidding. Grew up with too many of those.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers to those across the South, the Southeast, South that were affected by the storms over the weekend. But again, yeah, at least in Lexington, I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody. At least in Lexington, it wasn't that bad, Jen. Like I felt like
no, it got windy and the rain got heavy for a little bit, but there was a tornado that kind of sparked over the lake and kind of went into Chapin a little bit.
Oh, really? I did not see this news yesterday. Okay.
Here to help you.
All right. So, anyway, well, hope you're doing well as we get you up and get you going. Been talking a lot of basketball this morning, certainly on the heels of the decision last night to decline the invitation to the NIT tournament. We'll talk more about the women's decision to accept the bid to the NCAA tournament. A wise choice by Dawn Staley and crew. And joining us now to also talk some baseball throughout the hour, Jamie Bradford. And welcome and glad you accepted our invitation to join us again on a Monday morning.
Yeah, that was a pretty bizarre ordeal. I thought for sure, we were talking about this on Friday, that the reality that they were going to get an invite was becoming pretty realistic. And then when they declined, I was a little taken aback, I could tell you that.
By the way, was this a preemptive decline? Did we get invited? Do we know if we got invited?
Well, I mean, I would hope they got it.
I mean, technically, the last two teams remaining that don't get invited are in, but that's more of an exempt status. That's not like that's kind of like where you begrudgingly have to invite somebody, like they accidentally overhear your conversation, and now they're like, oh, what's happening?
Where are we going?
Yeah. Did we technically get invited? Or did we give it the preemptive? Nah.
I got out in front of it. Yeah. I would imagine they probably learned, because this came out before the bracket was announced. Yeah. So I'm sure that they knew that there were 14 teams going, and they knew that they were going to be invited, or maybe they were invited or whatever. I mean, that's an automatic invite. So yeah, they were getting invited, I guess.
Maybe they were just letting the NIT know, like, hey, if the NCAA calls, we're not coming to your party. Like, we just want to let you know, if we by chance get 15 or 16 teams into the tournament, we can't make the NIT.
We're not. Yeah. Jamie, the part of this that is surprising to me, because it's not just South Carolina, LSU turned it down. So that's surprising in that it felt like the SEC went out and negotiated a deal only to look at the deal at the last minute and be like, I don't think this is a good deal. Let's call this thing off. Hey, LSU and South Carolina, you're not going. Just you can blame yourselves, blame injuries, blame whatever, but you're not going because, as Preston's pointed out, Lamont Paris put out a statement. Nothing from Matt McMahon.
I've been searching. I have not seen anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from Matt McMahon either. And Coach Paris, I don't know if the statement was planning, like, were they planning to put that statement out, or because there was some blowback, did they decide to put the statement out? I mean, obviously the line that stands out is due to some attrition on our roster with injuries. We decided it was best to not participate this year. So, I mean, there's two conversations to have with it. There's the surface, and then there's beneath the surface. The surface is, why would you not continue to play? I mean, I've always been, if you have an opportunity to play in any sport. But that's me. But below the surface, there are sometimes reasons that you just cannot disclose at that point in time as to why you can't play. So I don't know if we actually know full circle the true reasoning behind all of this, but it was a little bit surprising. There's no doubt.
Yeah, we read the statement from Lamont Paris on air, and as we kind of raised our eyebrows at the injury statement, like, we know about Miles Studi, and we've known about that for a while, but what other injuries may have had if he did. There's going to be attrition to the roster. We know that. I don't know who it's going to be, but we do know that.
Yeah, okay, so the portal opens the 24th of March, right? So you're safe there. But the injury situation, I don't know. One of the things we're talking about on my show on Friday, very much like bowl season, I asked my guys, I said, if you're Colin Murray Boyles, do you play in the NIT? Are we there? Or is that where we are in basketball? Like, what do I have to gain by playing in the NIT, by playing one or two more games in the NIT? You have more to gain by playing in a bowl game, I would think, right? So if your CMB is playing in the NIT when you've got a first-round grade, is that something that is beneficial to you personally? Now, knowing and understanding Colin Murray Boyles, he would probably play because he cares about this basketball program. But just throwing out that kind of plastic conversation, should Colin Murray Boyles play? What is that worth to him?
Yeah, I looked specifically at Rutgers for this because, number one, Rutgers was expected to have a very good team this year. They've got two guys in Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper who are going to the NBA. I could understand why they opted out, because those two guys probably looked at it and were like, no, we're not participating. Colin Murray Boyles, I'll be interested, Jamie and Preston. Preston, you've been in locker rooms. You've seen stuff like this. Let's go back. Your senior season, your very last season, a bowl game was taken away from you. A little bit different scenario, but a bowl game was taken away. How much were the players involved in that discussion behind the scenes, the senior leaders?
And what discussion?
Or any discussion, or did it just somebody poke their head in and be like, "Clean out your locker, season's done"?
I don't think y'all had a discussion, did you?
0%. Matter of fact, we found out on the news before we got to the discussion. There's a whole podcast about it. It's called The Fight. Wrote a whole story about it 15 years ago. Yeah, there was zero discussion.
Do y'all think the players had any input on this, any say on this?
No.
I don't either.
A Jeremiah Donati, Greg Sankey, Lamont Paris deal?
Maybe in further top down, I think.
Greg Sankey, then Jeremiah Donati, and then Lamont. it's an interesting situation just from the standpoint of like, all right, what happens moving forward, what goes forward. We'll get more into this, but we haven't talked any baseball this morning. We're going to let Jamie break some of that down. The Gamecocks yesterday, as Paul Maneri said it, bitter pill, and we'll talk about yesterday's game and also look back at the positives from the weekend, the negatives as we roll along. Get a little more into basketball this morning. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jamie Bradford, Jen Jensen, of course. It is the early game. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder, and First Palmetto Bank. It is that time of the year where checking on interest rates, considering yourself to maybe refinance or looking for a new home, it all starts by finding out what interest rates, what money is available to you. Give Jacob Crowder a call. The Mortgage Guru for a reason. I used him just a few years ago, and let me tell you what, he made sure that I got at a great deal, kept the payments nice and low, had a nice, easy down payment that I had to make, and he'll do the exact same thing for you. Give him a phone call, 803-719-1005. Again, that's 803-719-1005. You can also email him, the letter J, Crowder, CROWDER, at firstpalmetto.com. Give him a phone call today. Talk with him. Learn what options are available to you, what products are available. Call the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder, 803-719-1005.
In the cleanup stages there, Paget Road at Trotter. Also, Syrup Mill Road near Woodlander Drive in the Blythewood area. There's also an accident. Otherwise, things moving okay. For your Monday morning, 64, that's where we're looking to have a high today. 74 tomorrow, 80 on Wednesday before we get back into the 60s to round out your work week. But it's pretty decent right now, 58 on 107.5 The Game.
A bitter pill to swallow. I thought for most of the game we played well enough to win, had a chance, but a couple of things I think ended up being our demise. We had opportunities to score more runs earlier in the game. We didn't take advantage of a couple opportunities and kept them in the game. And then, of course, the seventh inning, we walked the first two guys of the inning with a 2-run lead. That normally doesn't turn out well for you. But then we got the lead and had a chance to close them out. Tough lineup when we got, the leadoff hitter to pop up in the ninth inning to lead off the inning. I felt pretty good about our chances, but it just didn't happen for us. They tied the game, and then I thought what was going to be a routine fly ball to center field just kept blowing with the wind and went out of the ballpark. And we had a chance even in the bottom of the ninth inning there, or was that the 10th inning, and just couldn't get them across. So we just got to take it like men and look forward to Tuesday night.
The words there of Paul Maneri as South Carolina drops the game yesterday that, as Paul Maneri says, a bitter pill to swallow, and joining us as he does each and every Monday morning. And more interested now maybe than sometimes, because this was an interesting series, Jamie Bradford, to see a pretty poor game from South Carolina standpoint on Friday night, a really good game on Saturday, and one on Sunday that they're going to have to get over kind of quickly because they blew that one.
Yeah, they blew it. Yeah, there's no question about that. And you could hear it in Coach Maneri's voice. I think he probably, in a different world would want to be a little bit more specific as far as some of the bugaboos that happened late in the game there. But he's not going to throw his guys under the bus necessarily. But that was disappointing in how it ended. So, they're -1 now is the way to look at it. They're -1. They lost the series, could have won the series, and they're going to have to find somewhere to get that back. They have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity because this league is so brutal. So they're going to have to find a way to get that back somewhere. And it starts next week. They got to go to Arkansas and at least win a game. You got Tennessee coming to town. I'm talking about series now. The College Charleston's up next, but they're -1 in that department. So they got to pick one up somewhere.
How do we look at this rotation now? You saw the change with Brandon Stone getting the Friday night start. How do you look at it now? Again, trying to iron out, and I guess not just the rotation, but also the key roles for the pitchers here getting into the later innings. This is another situation. I don't want to put yesterday's loss entirely on the pitching staff. Obviously had the errors, but you go back to that Clemson series, and again, those were all one-run games, I believe in the 8th, 7th, I know in the 7th, maybe in the 8th as well, and a situation where South Carolina not able to close it out. So how do we start to look again at the rotation and then also the roles of the pitchers here?
Well, I think they like who they have in the weekend rotation. They got Brandon Stone. I mean, all these guys, or two of the three, McCoy and Stone had a rough inning, and then they were able to work through it. So you give them credit there. That's a learning experience for them against a really good team like Oklahoma. I'm kind of tired of hearing like the common average fan list Oklahoma is just a, quote, middle-of-the-road SEC team. Well, let me tell you something. Middle-of-the-road SEC teams go to Omaha. Okay, that's a good team. That's a really good team that we saw this weekend. Their rotation is outstanding. Carolina, I think they feel like they are where they want to be from a rotational standpoint. It's just getting, through some of the kinks. I mean, the pitching and defense are what lost the game yesterday. I know Coach Maneri will, obviously, as the head coach, he's going to point to some offensive things they could have done better. But, I mean, between the 7th and the 9th inning, they walked 6 guys, and 3 of those 6 scored. I mean, that's where they lost the game. And defensively, you got a couple of veterans in the middle who weren't able to make plays, and that's disappointing. That's your job. That's what you're there for. And they weren't able to make plays. I mean, the offense hit 340 this weekend, guys, against a really good staff at Oklahoma. 340. I mean, how much more are you going to ask them to do? So in this league, like this is an offense that just last week everybody wanted to tear everything down and fire the staff and turn the program over to some JV squad and let's move on. And then they walk out this weekend and hit 340 as a group. So, I mean, I know they missed a couple of opportunities, but that's pretty good to me. So you have to be able to make plays, and pitchers have to be able to, in crucial moments, they got to be able to make big pitches. You can't just put guys on in this league or you're going to get beat by 1 run a lot. It's going to happen. And that's the fine line of how good the SEC is and, what a 13-17 or a 17-13 record looks like right there, which you saw yesterday. So they're going to have to find a way to start winning those ball games, and pitching and defense is where it all starts.
Preston, how do you take away from that?
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and I guess what the most disappointing part is that's supposed to be the calling card for this team and for Coach Maneri's team. So I would assume that they're going to be doing a lot of drills, a lot of fundamental drills, and trying to get some of those things corrected. But I guess to me the most disappointing part of the game, especially Sunday, was that they lost on some what would seemingly be fundamental, basic baseball plays.
Yeah, well, look, those were not like routine, easy peasy ground balls. I'm not trying to throw dirt in these kids' face. They're good players. I mean, Jordan Carrion is a good player. He's a good defender. There's a reason why Florida State and Florida and Miami and South Carolina, all these teams want him. Same thing with Kazmar. But, you got to be able to make those plays in those moments, too, or at least minimize the damage. And then the same thing with the pitching staff. Those are all guys who've thrown a lot of innings. I don't really put much on Brendan Sweeney. I mean, he went in there and did everything he could. Becker's better than he's showing. He's just mentally, he's in his head. And he came in on Friday, and I thought that inning in third that he threw, I thought, well, maybe that'll kind of get him out of it. And then they gave him another opportunity yesterday, and unfortunately, it's just not there for him right now, and he's going to have to find it because they need a senior left-hander to help them win. So these guys, in those moments, they've all been in them before. You just have to perform. There's nothing else to say. You don't have to kick them when they're down or bury them or anything like that. They know that they have to perform, and they just didn't. And offensively yesterday, I mean, they had a couple of nice moments. I mean, Evan Stone, that triple he hit off the wall. I mean, number one, good for him because he bleeds garnet and black. I mean, they had some big knocks this weekend and some big spots that they haven't really been coming through here and there, and they did this weekend at times. So there's been a lot of progress offensively. But a couple of bugaboos and you lose the series, and it looks a lot worse than it really was.
803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in on that. As you kind of now you mentioned it, all right, Arkansas is on deck, but you got to get by College of Charleston tomorrow night. This game will be over at Segra Park. Chad Holbrook, these two met. Give us a little reminder. I know it was a scrimmage game, an exhibition game in the fall. I want to say Charleston won that one. I want to say it was a high scoring, like 11-9, 12-10, something like that. What do we take away from that gets used for tomorrow night?
Nothing. You don't take anything away from that. You had all kinds of guys playing all kinds of places and different pitchers and different roles, even with their guys. But they've won, I think, 4 in a row now. Now they did play Dartmouth this past weekend, who's really not good at all. But they can score a bunch of runs quickly. I mean, they have a big, powerful lineup. And they can score a bunch of runs quickly. And I know they dropped a couple of games this year that they would like to have back. Matter of fact, they lost the series to Creighton. Y'all do know who the associate head coach at Creighton is, don't you?
Oh, yeah, Mark Kingston. Yeah.
Yeah, D1 Mark Kingston, yeah. So he's not really doing anything. He just kind of hangs out in the dugout, but he's there. So this is going to be a really difficult game to win tomorrow night, and I'm expecting Jarvis Evans to go for the Gamecocks, so they're going to need another nice performance out of him.
Yeah, and he's been very good so far this season. We'll continue talking about this as Jamie, we've changed up our clock schedule a little bit, so I want to give you more time so we don't have let's continue talking about this, get a few final thoughts. Looking ahead to Arkansas, you mentioned getting one back. I don't know if that would be next week's game against North Carolina that you kind of circle as the one you're like, all right, to maybe offset the Sunday Oklahoma loss, you try and get the game against North Carolina. That becomes a little more important. We'll talk about that in these next few weeks here with you as we roll along. Again, Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, and joined as always on a Monday morning by Jamie Bradford. It is the early game.
They do say perfection is a journey, and our journey led us to Carolina Stone Craftsman just outside Columbia in Chapin. With all that, with some renovations that we did and some bathrooms, we needed countertops. And obviously, Carolina Stone Craftsman was the place we were referred to. We felt at home right away, toured their showroom, which I'm telling you is absolutely amazing. And their outdoor showroom is fabulous as well. So much to choose from. We weren't exactly sure what we were looking for, so we ended up asking for some help. They were very helpful in making us, helping us determine what it was that we needed. Once the installation was complete, everything was cleaned up like they were never there. If you were in the market for countertops for your kitchen or bath, I do encourage you to reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman. Tell them Jen Jensen sent you. Family owned and operated, Carolina Stone Craftsman, just beyond Columbia in Chapin and beyond your expectations, I assure you. CarolinaStoneCraftsman.com. Syrup Mill Road near Woodlander Drive, still reporting an accident there. Also, Reimer Pond Road at Longtown Road, so be careful there as well. 64 is what we're looking at for today, 74 tomorrow, 80 on Wednesday. Right now, it's fair, and it's 58 on 107.5 The Game.
Well, there were two key factors between UCLA and South Carolina. One was the head-to-head matchup, and the other was one of our criteria, which is competitive in losses, and South Carolina suffered a 29-point loss to UConn. So those are those are the two key differences in those resumes.
That is the voice of Dorita Dawkins with the Women's Basketball Committee chair yesterday, and why South Carolina wasn't the top seed. And we'll get you ready for that. I want to remind you that not this Friday, but the following Friday, we got the 107.5 The Game Spring Golf Classic. This year, partnering up with Lexington County Gamecock Club. It'll be Friday, March the 28th at Charwood over in West Columbia. Call today and get signed up and secure your foursome, 803-755-2000. That's 803-755-2000. So that'll be next Friday. This Friday, 4 o'clock, South Carolina will host Tennessee Tech. And Jamie Bradford, Preston Thorne. Preston, I'll start with you. Is being the number one, is this a big deal at all? I don't think it is, by the way. But I saw it got some run, some discussion last night on who was the top overall seed.
I don't know if it matters as far as competitiveness of the tournament is concerned, because you're going to have to play everybody. I think maybe it mattered more in the SEC tournament. I don't know how much it matters then. I think it's just for the recognition of saying that you were the top of the game for the season. But overall, I don't think it affects play very much.
Jamie, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, this is a total non-story. I mean, it's just more for, gloating, future purposes. That's it. If this affects how they play, then they got bigger problems. But I don't think it has. I think it has zero effect on anything.
Well, and I don't know if South Carolina getting the top national seed would have changed things, but it looks like to me. It looks kind of like a blessing. Like you look at the teams on their side of the bracket. You avoid obviously UCLA, no real surprise there until the championship game. You avoid Connecticut, who's on the very other side of the bracket. You would avoid them until the championship game. I don't know whether it's good or bad to avoid LSU. If you keep beating them all the time, is it really a game that bothers you? You avoid Southern Cal and Juju Watkins until the national championship game. I mean, you kind of got everything you asked for. You know you can beat Texas. You've taken them down twice this year. TCU, they crunched somewhere along the line back in, I think, December. Duke, it feels like this is about as nice a setup as you could get for South Carolina to make a run back to the Final Four and to the national championship game before you run into one of those teams that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you what, the only thing that I wish could be different about this bracket from a national perspective, because my good friend Debbie Antonelli, I'm totally on her side about things that you can do on a national stage, on a grand stage, to continue to improve the women's game from a competition standpoint, right? And I think that in this particular season, the best thing that could happen to the women's game would be a Final Four consisting of South Carolina, Southern Cal, UCLA, and UConn. The reason that I say that is because you would have the opportunity. Obviously you have a few different things that could happen here, but you'd have opportunities for all sorts of promotional national championship games or Final Four games. USC versus USC, obviously Southern Cal versus UCLA, Geno versus whomever, Geno versus Dawn. I mean, you'd have a lot of things, UCLA and South Carolina playing again. I mean, there'd just be so many different things that could help promote the women's game. But UConn is in the Spokane Regional, so they're the 2 seed to Southern Cal, who's 1. So that's impossible. That's the only thing I wish would have been maybe a little bit different about everything that came out yesterday.
No, and I had to go back. Could not remember if the women played Utah this year or last year. Long way to remember back to November, and football was on such a run that I wasn't paying attention. But they did play Duke earlier this year as part of the ACC SEC Challenge. Obviously, they beat Duke then. They did knock off, again, we mentioned TCU beat them by 33 back in December, beat Duke by 11 here at Colonial Life Arena. So, again, this side of the bracket does set up well. And Preston, this is an odd position for Dawn Staley, I think, and her team because of that last loss we saw to Connecticut that Dorita Dawkins just mentioned being a 29-point loss. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's it. That's the end of the dynasty. They're done." Well, here they are again, and you look at it, and they're again. They are the Vegas favorite. They are the betting favorite to win the national championship.
Yeah, and they've overcome that season-defining loss to compare it to what I guess a lot of people were saying. I don't even know if that was nationally. I think people were saying. I think that might have been more so locally because we hadn't seen that. But to go back to the number 1 seed dilemma, that was a perfectly fine explanation, and it made perfect sense. Head-to-head, difference in losses, that's acceptable. Just wish we could do that same sort of conversation in other sports.
Yeah.
That made sense. Seems like when we go to these other sports, we can't find things that make sense. Like, even if Dawn or, and staff want to have an argument, that's fine. But that makes perfect sense, and it checks out. When we have these conversations about football, it's like, what's the criteria here? And we never know. So we may not like it, but I think that's perfectly fine and reasonable to accept that.
Mm-hmm. So
I agree with that. No. I think he's exactly right. I mean, no. You can get in and argue the metrics, but the metrics are so close that if that's the cherry on top, that's the cherry on top. So be it.
803-404-6100. I mentioned that we'll do our Gamecock whip around coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But, Jamie, I know last week you had Ashley Chastain Woodard on and her team this weekend. Softball, we got to give them a little love. They take 2 of 3, and that should keep them in the top 10.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, they're something, aren't they? They're fun. They even in that they had that 5-game losing streak because they lost the Friday night ball game to Georgia. They didn't flinch. This team won't flinch, and they got Texas Tech coming up this weekend. I mean, they just challenge after challenge after challenge, but they are as resilient of a team as you can find. I mean, they crave the moment. They're resilient. They're fun to watch. They're having a good time. And they're getting some outstanding crowds now too. So kudos to all the fans who are going out and watching them play. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good. Y'all had a good, very good interview with her. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll get final thoughts on baseball. We'll get final thoughts on the NCAA actual basketball tournament from Jamie. Yeah, it's not all about South Carolina turning down the NIT. And we will also we'll put Jamie Bradford on the spot a little bit. What is his go-to way of declining an invitation to join something? We'll get his word on that as well. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, joined as always on a Monday morning by Jamie Bradford. It is the early game. 7:46 as we start to wrap up hour number 2 here on your Monday morning, March the 17th. And Jamie Bradford, are you a St. Patrick's Day kind of guy? I feel like as we get older, St. Patrick's Day becomes less and less a priority. Are you still a St. Patrick's Day kind of guy? You got 2 little ones there. Do you celebrate with them at all?
Yeah, well, I just walked downstairs right before they were going to the bus stop and got chewed out for not having any green on them. So I guess I better fix it.
Yes.
I didn't even think about it.
Yes. Big in elementary school circles. Got to have the green on. Got to.
Yeah.
Big time. That's a missed assignment, Dad.
Yeah, don't want to get pinched.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did. I got pinched. So
Lesson learned.
it's all good. I'll fix it before they get it. I don't really own much green, though. So I guess we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, that's part of as I prepared for Saturday. I realized I'm really limited on green and not thinking ahead. I wore kind of like the best green item I've got. I wore it on like Thursday, and I didn't want to be that person who wore something Thursday and then turned around and wore it again on Saturday. So I kind of was just having to.
It would have been okay. Probably a different group of people, maybe, or was it the same?
Probably about the same. I'm sure I was going to run into somebody I saw on Thursday that I was going to see Saturday. So. I didn't take it as seriously, but I do feel like as we age, St. Patrick's Day drops down the list of St. Patrick's peak time when it moves maybe into the top 3 of holidays is college years, correct?
Well, it definitely is South Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the St. Pat's Festival. I mean, there's so many people that go to that. I think kind of all ages.
Yeah. No, they
it's still embraced.
I was talking to somebody. I didn't come down to 5 Points on Saturday. I've not too many people for me, but I was talking to somebody who I guess had come down to see one of their grandkids, and they didn't realize that the St. Patrick's, like in the morning, it's more of a family. It's more of your family-oriented, like kind of event. They were like, I was shocked. They said, I don't know if I can word it appropriately, but like, I was shocked there was that many families there that morning. I thought it was all college kids at like 9 a.m. just doing their thing. I was like, no, it's actually in the morning. They've got a race and they do face painting and they've got all kinds of cool stuff. So
yeah, you just get there early and just recognize when the temperature's changing.
Right.
And just like,
you can see it. You can figure it out pretty quickly too.
Just feel the winds blowing a different direction. You're like, okay, it's time for us to leave now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Big picture, Jamie. NCAA basketball tournament. What excited you for? What made you most excited last night? What was maybe the biggest scandal from the men's side besides North Carolina being allowed in the tournament?
Yeah, that North Carolina thing. I thought they'd get in. You know, can I just ask real quick? You know, not trying to stir up any controversy in the last 4 minutes here, but do you think that there's any way at all that Bubba Cunningham, like, I'm not saying that he did it because he obviously recused himself, but I mean, isn't it easy to believe that you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back type conversations are going on, or am I creating something that doesn't exist here?
Go ahead.
I don't. This is really good because we're back to having the same conversation. As I go back to football, we had the same conversation. We've had this conversation when you have sitting ADs on these committees. There's going to be an inherent conflict of interest, no matter how professional people are, or if at least it would lead us conspiracy theory junkies to maybe want to jump to conclusions. They can just eliminate this all by not having those people in those positions.
I know. I mean, look, I heard the explanation last night from, was it Kevin Gill, I think is who it was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's a reasonable explanation. But it's still, I mean, if North Carolina was what we're used to North Carolina being, nobody'd be talking about Bubba Cunningham being the chair of the committee. But they weren't. And I mean, you can make a legitimate argument that they didn't deserve to be anywhere near. I mean, if South Carolina had that same resume, are they in the tournament today?
No. I would assume not. Texas had what? I'm blanking. I think it was 13 14, I can't remember. Texas had a lot of quad one wins, which is what got them in. But Texas, was it 7 quad one wins, not 13. But Texas had the number 287 ranked non-conference schedule, poor. They had a 6-12 league record, poor, and 15 total losses, poor. And so them being in was controversial. And then you had West Virginia, Indiana, and Ohio State all kind of left out. They threw in Boise State as well. But you had West Virginia with 10 combined quad one, quad two wins.
Right. Well, that's the one that I thought should have been in, especially over North Carolina. But, every year there's one or two. So, I don't know. I think that this tournament this year is wide open as ever. I think obviously, the hottest team in the tournament is Florida, and generally when you're the hottest team, you've got as good of a chance as any to win it. And of course, they're the number one seed in the West region. But at the same time, are y'all going to be shocked if there's not a number one seed in the Final Four? Because I won't be. I won't be shocked at all. I think there's a ton of parity in men's college basketball. I do think there will be a number one seed there, but if there isn't one, it's not like it'd be the first time we ever saw that, and I surely wouldn't be shocked to see it again.
Well, you saw Clark Kellogg last night had Clemson make a run all the way to the championship game, lose to Florida in the championship game, was his pick for the Final Four in the championship game. Which number one seed, because one of these will not, which one seed does not get out of opening weekend? Florida, who would have to go through Norfolk State and then either UConn or Oklahoma. Houston, they got to go through SIUE, and then they got, Southern Illinois University of Evanston, maybe something, I can't remember. And then either Georgia or Gonzaga. Houston would have to go through then either Georgia, Gonzaga. Duke has got one of the play-in games, and then would have to go through either Mississippi State or Baylor, or Auburn has a play-in game, and then would have to go through Louisville or Creighton. Which one do y'all take to not get out of the first weekend?
So the scariest one to me is Florida having to potentially see UConn, because this is their time of year.
Right.
But believe it or not, I'm going to go with Auburn. I just don't like how they've been playing lately. Maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe they turn on the Jets. I don't know, but they're struggling going in. So I'm just going to hang with Auburn.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Either or, Louisville or Creighton would be a very difficult thing. Preston, who do you go with?
Give me Houston, just because I'm not a believer in Kelvin Sampson.
Okay. All right. Totally understand. I actually think they've got the easiest.
Fair.
I think they've got the easiest path there to get to at least the Sweet 16. I'm going to go with what you just said. Well, I'm going to go opposite of you about Florida, but I think it's Florida that doesn't get out. That's UConn or Oklahoma. I think they end up getting Connecticut, and Dan Hurley pulls some magic, some Dan Hurley magic, and
Thorns.
Good.
Well,
we got that coming up.
I would love to see Pat Kelsey in Louisville, even though it's the SEC and we never hear the end of it, right? But I'd love to see Pat Kelsey, because Pat's such a great guy, formerly at the College of Charleston. I'd love to see him knock off Auburn in that second round if they can get there.
Jamie, what's your go-to excuse when you're invited to do something and you need to turn it down?
Oh, I got to work. I work in the media. I got to cover a game tonight. I'm covering for somebody.
Good job.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Always appreciate it.
There's always sports on.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Y'all take care.
See ya.
Take care, buddy. Jamie Bradford there joining us as he does each and every Monday. We'll come back. We've got the Gamecock Whip around. We'll get into some thorns, buds, and roses, and who knows what else. Hour 3 on the way. Bill Gunner for Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. It is officially spring cleaning month. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I've made it a real thing. But you need to be calling Zero Res here to get that spring cleaning taken care of, because this month you've got an absolutely great deal from Zero Res. Give them a phone call, 803-262-4020, and mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, to get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $119. $119. Plus, you'll get a free hallway. You heard that right. Mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, to get 3 rooms of carpet clean for $119 plus a free hallway. You can book online, ZeroResColumbia.com, or again, give them a phone call, 803-262-4020. Schedule your cleaning today with their patented ZR Water technology, scientifically proven to keep the carpets, rugs, tile, and upholstery all insanely clean. Call ZeroRes today. ZeroRes, spelled backwards and forwards, is the right way to clean.
Bluff Road at Berea Road, we have an accident there. Also, Highway 1 at Watling. I-20 eastbound there at Bush River Road. Parkland Road at Parkview. Reimer Pond Road at Longtown Road. Also, a report of a slowdown there. Do be careful if you would this morning. 64 is where we should top out today. Sunny for Tuesday and Wednesday, 74 and 80 respectively. Then we get back into the 60s to round out the week. But right now, kind of holding steady at this point. It's 57 on 107.5 The Game.
$8 a.m. as we get you up and get you going here on this Monday morning. Thank you again to Jamie Bradford for joining us there in the previous hour to talk about the baseball team. We'll talk a little bit more about them coming up here as part of our Gamecock Whip Around, to talk a little bit of softball as well. Preston, we'll get into them a little bit from our Gamecock Whip Around, and, of course, basketball. And that is what we've discussed a lot today is the Gamecock men's team turning down the NIT, that decision, and the Gamecock baseball team being in position to pull out a series victory that would have been very important, but not being able to close the door on the Sooners.
Yeah, and losing in the way that they did was, I think, most disappointing because they lost on some fundamental baseball plays that you don't want to see from this team moving forward.
So we have discussed that. Maybe not discussed quite as much the women's basketball team because they don't get the number 1 seed, but now their season officially begins, right?
100%. It was a thing. I think if you would have looked at the brackets and saw that their brackets were significantly more difficult than the number 1 seed, then maybe there would be an argument. But we just looked at it. Doesn't seem like actually seems like they might have got a favorable draw.
Yeah, I mean
so I think it's fine.
We mentioned it, and again we'll kind of get back into it later on this week. But they end up avoiding LSU. They avoid Southern Cal. They avoid Connecticut. They avoid UCLA. Again, I mentioned LSU, but maybe you wanted to see them. Maybe you wanted because you've kind of dominated that series. But, again, a lot there for them to get through their regional. They'll have Duke is part of their regional. They get Utah and Indiana is likely going to be the second game, one of those two teams. So all in all, and you got Texas as the other number 1 seed who you would hypothetically match up with in the Final Four.
Who we've beaten by double digits on the occasions when we did beat them,
right.
and we lost by single digits when we lost to them at home. So exactly. I think it's favorable.
803-404-6100. Speaking of the women's tournament, let's get out to the phone lines where Hank wants to weigh in this morning. Hank, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Bill. As you know, I kind of follow the women's game a good bit, and I think the draw is great. I don't have a problem with the committee giving UCLA because, as Preston said, at least they gave an excuse that was plausible and didn't seem like they were searching for something to cut off the conspiracy theories. I will say I think the one little issue I think that Dawn had with the overall selection was the schedule, because I think we were 3 or 4 spots higher than UCLA in the net. And most of the metrics weighed out. I think UCLA had beaten 2 top 10 teams. I think South Carolina had beaten 5. But I think it was the schedule was the issue with Dawn, because a number of these teams in the preseason play like 2 or 3 big games, and then they play like 10 high school teams that develop their bench and all that. And Dawn has kind of stepped up. Her and Gino are the 2 that step up and play anybody anywhere. And so their strength of schedule were way higher than, especially UCLA, wasn't as higher than Southern Cal, but higher than UCLA. And so I think that was the issue. She said she would think about, because they put that in as a metric, whether she's going to schedule all these teams like that again, when she could take some lesser teams and develop freshmen and younger players.
Yeah, they lost what? They lost a conference game on the road. They lost a really good game against UCLA on the road. And then we all know what happened against Connecticut. So 2 of the 3 losses are non-conference games. But as we kind of said, and I asked Preston and Jamie this, I don't know what the advantage of if they'd have been the number 1 overall seed. I don't know what the advantage you get from that. You're going to get your games here, and you're going to be going to Birmingham anyway.
I think from a schedule, how the bracket played out, they got as good a bracket as they got as the number 1 seed. I think the biggest thing for them was, for years they were told, if you schedule garbage in the pre-conference, then it's going to play into how you are seated. And so I think Dawn always sets her schedule up that they play well enough and they don't lose a ton of games, they should be the overall number 1 seed. And so, in fact, even that was the biggest disagreement among their 4 analysts, was that 3 or 4 of them, or 4 or 4 of them, thought that South Carolina probably should have been an overall number 1 seed just based off resume. But it doesn't really mean anything going to the tournament. But I think that's just the issue that she said, was basically, they scheduled everybody and played them, and most people didn't want to come here, so they went out to them and play them. And so you set yourself up for a couple of losses. And if they took off one of those hiccups, they're the overall number 1 seed. So.
Yeah, and I think Coach has a fair point, but I guess my counterpoint would be, respectfully, Coach, we enjoy those big games as fans, and I think that's been one of the things that's really built the brand of South Carolina basketball, is that we'll go play anybody, anywhere, anytime, and I think that's a mantra that hopefully she was just speaking out of a little frustration, and she won't let that deter what I think is something that they've really built the program on, being able to play some of those marquee games. So we'll see. But I think maybe it was just probably a little frustration, Hank. But you're right. I think we'll be good with that.
Appreciate the phone call, Hank. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in. Let's whip around some Gamecock athletics. It's our Gamecock Whip Around, sponsored by Mid-State Roofing. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Now, we've covered a lot of the main stuff here. We've gotten into a lot of the big stuff there, Preston, when it comes to the men's team. That was some women's talk. The men's team turns down the NIT bid.
Who all gonna be there? Apparently not many Power 5 teams.
Not many. Yeah, South Carolina not the only one. Interesting, and we'll get back into this maybe later on in the hour, that the SEC sets up a rule that essentially gets 2 extra teams into the postseason, and then the SEC looks around and is like, nah, we're not going to do this. LSU and South Carolina both declined the bids. They elect to both stay out. They join Wake Forest, Rutgers, Pittsburgh, Indiana, and Northwestern as what we would call high major teams that elect to skip the NIT tournament. Georgia Tech, Stanford, and Oklahoma State, the 3 high major programs that we would label as electing to be in. We'll cover more of that. We've talked a lot about this more, but we'll cover more of that. That's a little bit with men's basketball. Of course, baseball, we just kind of listened to Jamie Bradford talk about it for a little bit, Preston, and it's the Sunday game that's going to be the one they wish they had back. They got popped pretty good on Friday night. They popped Oklahoma pretty good on Saturday afternoon, but they're going to want that Sunday game back. That's one you circle for later in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever you have an opportunity to take an SEC series, you need to do that. So
we've talked a lot about that. We'll let you listen to a little bit more Paul Maneri later on in the hour as the Gamecocks get set to take on College of Charleston tomorrow night. A reminder, we'll have that right here for you coming up. 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch over at Segra Park against College of Charleston. Softball got a little dicey there for a minute. Lose 3 in a row to Arkansas, to Oklahoma. Lose to Coastal last week. Lose to Georgia. 5 straight losses, and they bounce back and win 2. And we're all completely reinvested again in Ashley Chastain Woodard's ball club, as they should stay within the top 25 now. Within the top 10. I think maybe that midweek game knocks them out a little bit, but they get a series victory over Georgia. 13th ranked Georgia, by the way, 2-1.
Bill, you gave the charge that they needed to take 2 out of 3, and you challenged us as a fans to not treat them as some Cinderella story or things like that. Treat them as a legit team, and they went out and got it done. Good job.
All right, let's hit a few other sports here on a Gamecock Whip Around. How about a little bit of beach volleyball? The Gamecocks got a milestone victory over the weekend. Preston Thorne, do you have any idea what head coach Moritz's team did over the weekend in a milestone victory?
I do not.
Okay, it's win number 200 for the program. Win number 200 for the program, is that was against Eastern Kentucky on Sunday. Yesterday, they won. Pretty good weekend for them. Knocks off UNC Wilmington 3-2, lost to Coastal Carolina 4-1, and beat Eastern Kentucky and College of Charleston yesterday 5-0. So the beach volleyball team with a very solid 3-1 weekend for them, as they are rolling along right now, 8-5 on the season, 5-1 at home. Men's tennis over the weekend, very solid weekend for the 25th ranked men's tennis team. They knock off Arkansas last week and then knock off number 18 Oklahoma over the weekend. Women's tennis pretty solid as well. They picked up a victory on the road against Mississippi, and then yesterday lost on the road at LSU. So men's tennis with a pretty solid weekend. Men's tennis, really good weekend, going 2-0. Women's tennis 1-1.
Good. Congratulations to them.
And finally, a reminder, it gets going again Wednesday. We'll have the Shane Beamer press conference for you tomorrow at 12:30. But here it comes.
Actually, it is today. We did have a correction. It's today at 12:30.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Nope. That was an update.
Gotcha. All right. Shane Beamer press conference today, 12:30. You'll hear it right here on 107.5 The Game. That'll be coming up. He will give us his spring press conference. Practice will get going on Wednesday for the Gamecocks, and you're just ready to hear the pads thumping.
Depth charts.
Depth chart
season. Are we here?
There's a lot of depth charts to get into with this team. Running back depth chart, defensive tackle depth chart, linebacker depth. You get the point. A lot to get into, and we'll get it going for you today with Shane Beamer's press conference. Again, you'll hear that right here, 12:30 on 107.5 The Game. Again, that is your Gamecock Whip Around, sponsored by Midstate Roofing. Give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Midstate Roofing take a peek. We'll come back. Oh, it was a big weekend of sports, and Preston's got some thorns. He's got some grievances he's ready to air out. He's got some buds and some roses as well. We'll do that. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where they have been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for nearly 30 years. And right now, there's no better time to be calling them to help with a maintenance contract. Don't allow a leak to happen. Go ahead and get out in front of the situation. Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you and your family, you and your business. They want to keep your operation dry and running long into the future. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Again, it's 803-356-1919. Go ahead, let them help you. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll have an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee ready to speak with you and help you with a maintenance contract. And a Mid-State Roofing, they design and install a bonded system with a protective guarantee that, again, keeps your operation dry and running long into the future. Give them a phone call. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 803-356-1919.
Bluff Road at Berea Road, an accident there. Also Dutch Fork Road at near Three Dog Road. Highway 1 at Watling Road. I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road. Also malfunction junction there. I-26 eastbound at I-20. Park Lane at Park View. Reimer Pond Road at Longtown Road. And Spears Creek Church Road at Two Notch Road. So things definitely have gotten busier this morning on the highways. In case you couldn't hear, Spears Creek Church Road at Two Notch Road, Reimer Pond at Longtown, Park Lane Road at Parkview, malfunction junction on I-26 eastbound, an accident there. Also I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road, Dutch Fork Road at Three Dog Road, and Bluff at Berea. Looking for a high today of 65.
$8:18 as we roll along on your Monday morning. Hope you're up and doing well, getting ready for the week. I see Matt has weighed in this morning on our text line, and he sends us a picture of his tie. Oh, what makes it a special tie? Well, Preston, it's got shamrocks, amongst other things, on it.
Good call. Good call.
Green shamrocks.
Good call.
And some beers.
Good call.
So he is ready. So make sure you got Jen wore the green. You don't have on. Neither of us are wearing any green, are we?
I realized I don't really.
He scared me. I looked.
Oh, okay. Your duffel bag or your work bag.
This is how I would make my way through school if I was just carrying my bag. I got a bag.
Got a bag.
I remember my son last year went to some St. Patrick's Day event, and he was ready to walk out the door, and I said, dude, there's not a stitch of green on you. What are you doing? And I had a little centerpiece thing that there were these little wires that had a shamrock at the end, so he clipped one of those off, put them in his hat, and said, there I am. I'm good. So,
solid.
Yeah. Be creative today as we get you going to your work. Maybe you want to be pinched today. I don't know. Maybe you just are purposely not wearing green, but get out there. Don't pinch anybody, by the way. That was the most annoying thing in like high school, wasn't it? Like I got it. I messed up. I'm just trying to get through my day. Don't pinch me. Middle school?
Yeah. Yeah, that was more of an elementary, middle school. I don't know. You had people pinching you in high school. You had other issues going on. I'm just saying. Did you see a lot of high school students, Preston, when you were teaching?
Not as much.
They weren't in.
Not as much.
Yeah, it's more of a hee.
That's like more middle.
Kids that are more the sizes of leprechauns.
Exactly, all of them.
Uh-huh.
5th to 7th grade, the lost years.
The lost years, 5th to 7th. Yeah, I can get on board with you on that. 803-404-6100. It was a busy weekend. Preston Thorne's got some thorns, buds, and roses. Let's hear all about it here with Preston Thorne.
It's time for Thorns, Buds, and Roses with Preston Thorne on the early game. 107.5 The Game.
All right, Bill. We've been on a collision course. I've been heating this thing up, and this weekend finally took the cake. Because they say that players take on the attitudes of their coaches.
Okay.
And I want to let you know, you UConn players, you're just as annoying as your head coach. Dan Hurley and crew, over the weekend, managed to be even more annoying than they are normally. Creighton, you don't get a pass. You was pretty annoying, too. It was equally annoying. But the gall of anybody on UConn, especially Dan Hurley, to be talking about sportsmanship and how you have to play the game the proper way, and this is how you do things. When we have video evidence of Dan Hurley walking out of the Creighton Arena, pointing to his 2 fingers, telling them that he was the 2-time champ.
Sure, I forgot about that.
Video evidence.
Yeah, video evidence.
Dan Hurley, you are a thorn in my side. But here's the problem, Bill. I've been on record complaining about how college coaches are boring. There's no personalities. Well, Dan Hurley has a personality. And so, though it is annoying, I will accept it and appreciate it because I do appreciate our college coaches having personalities. I don't have to like it, but Dan Hurley, you are a thorn in my side, and that's good. We need more. Buds, we're planting the seed, Bill. 4th championship run, women's basketball. I know we're not the number 1 seed overall. I think that's what some people might have wanted, but we're fine. We got a great draw in the bracket. Plant the seed now, Bill. 4th championship run.
Okay.
Vegas believes it. All of the betting odds believe that it's going to happen. We've been following this team this year. This would be a very unique chapter in the women's basketball story if they were to make this long run. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. So buzz for a 4th championship for the women's basketball team. Finally, Bill, we need 85 roses. Something hit me. It might have been viral. Something hit everybody. 85 roses, but I don't think you're going to get this one. We need 85 roses for Dickie V.
Oh.
Viral clip of Dickie V giving his he was just saying how much he appreciated calling the games on ESPN, and it might or might not have gotten to your boy. It might or it
Got a little emotional.
It may or may not
Yeah.
have. Man, you see Dickie V, he's been such a stalwart in the college basketball game, in our lives. How long he's been calling games, he's a PTPer. Oh, this is awesome. All of those things, man. It's what you associate loving sports with.
Yeah.
And the enthusiasm. Yes, he's not going to give you the analytics, and that's fine. Somebody that unabashedly loves college sports, loves college athletes, loves the game. He's just somebody that, as I saw the video, again, it's misty in the room, but it was an awesome video and just reminded me that we have to honor our legends while they're here. And while obviously he's going through his cancer battle, he's overcome that for now, but just a legend, unquestionably. And so 85 roses for Dickie V, a PTPer.
Okay.
Bill, those are our thorns, buds, and roses.
All right. Dan Hurley. I think I like this guy. I mean, I have been known to like some for lack of a better term, some jerks.
Mm-hmm.
Denny Hamlin leads maybe the group of that.
Did you see him in the amount of money that he won this year?
Did he win
I'm sorry, not this year, but this past weekend in Vegas on a slot machine.
Yeah, buddy.
Come on.
He won over $100,000 on
That's
a
ridiculous.
slot machine.
Some guys
And-
have all the fun.
Well, and I looked and I was like, what is your, how much is he betting per spin? $300
Per spin?
per spin. That's past my budget for the day. So, yeah.
Living fast. Live fast, race hard, gamble hard.
And at one point he said, he said, this is embarrassing. Well, then get up and go. Donate it to charity. Clown.
Of course, there is the rumor that Bruno Mars lost about $50 million gambling at MGM resorts. So Hamlin 300, just betting 300 to spin though, but 100,000 for him.
Yeah, it was something like over 100,000 that he won. Yeah.
Anyway, how did we go there?
Dan Hurley, jerks.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I went to Danny Hamlin. Yeah.
Jerk,
Sorry,
jerk,
how
jerk.
did we get there? Yeah, Dan Hurley. I'm with you. I think I like this guy.
I get it.
He's quirky. He's annoying, but I think I like him. I think I'm on board with him. Buds, you mentioned the budding run here. Yeah, we've talked a little women's basketball this morning. Southcon is the betting favorite. Speaking of betting, the Vegas betting favorite to win the NCAA tournament. The path, it's not as easy as I think it's been in certain years, but you're going to get the games here this weekend that start on Friday at 4 o'clock. You're going to get a trip. You should get a trip to Birmingham, which is an easy drive for fans. South Carolina, and then quite frankly, out of all the other teams, UCLA, Southern Cal, Connecticut, Texas, yeah. I can't speak to LSU, but South Carolina's probably got their fan base has probably the easiest drive or path to get to Tampa.
Ooh, okay.
To make that a second home. So you're right. I point that out because you think about Birmingham and how easy of a trip that should be. Now you think about if you just do the math on it, if the favorites were to win out, UCLA, Southern Cal, and South Carolina and Texas, and you get the 4-1 seed, let's just go with that. South Carolina's got the fan base at Tampa is not an awful drive, 7.5 hours. I've done it a couple times, so like that. And then as far as roses, man, yeah, there was a time that Dickie V was annoying, but I'm watching. It's kind of like watching Lee Corso.
Absolutely.
ESPN's going to lose two guys who I don't know if you watch anymore to listen to analytics and analysis and all that, but they're part of what you and I in particular grew up watching with ESPN and actual sports coverage.
100%.
Two guys that I don't want to go too far on this, but two guys who really kind of stayed in their lane. They called sports because they loved it. They talked strictly sports. They didn't venture out to talk about, who can and cannot talk about LeBron James or anything like that. So their son, you get the point. They stay, Lee Corso, for all the mistakes he makes and as goofy as he gets, and the same thing with Dick Vitale, they covered sports. And I think for you and I growing up, there's going to be a day that we don't have them around, and it's going to be a sad day.
Yeah, because it's just a celebration of sports, and I think obviously we've moved a little bit past that. We're a lot more cynical, I think, as a society, and so maybe there's not as many places for a guy like Dick Vitale, or even I'm thinking like John Madden, or no, the analytics are not going to be there. They're not breaking down the pocket pass on the
right.
What I'm saying? That's not what he's doing, but he's giving you an unabashed love for the game and an appreciation for the game. And I think what we're seeing, to your point, I think we're seeing in a lot of places, the NBA specifically, you don't have enough people actually saying, hey, this game is awesome. There are a lot of great things happening here. Let's celebrate this. And so you have these guys who are champions for their games. It made my formative years as a sports fan made me want to be excited about these games, and it made you want to tune in to watch those things. So Dick Vitale, huge part of my upbringing when I think about it.
Yeah, with you. 803-404-6100. Those were some really good Thorns, Buds, and Roses. We'll come back, look around the sports world and a few other stories that occurred over the weekend, and start to wrap it up. You're listening to The Early Game.
Press here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. If your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they work directly with your insurance company to take away the headache. That's right. They work with whoever you are, wherever you are. So if you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows or mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. We say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Dutch Fork Road near Three Dog Road, an accident there. Also Bluff at Berea Road. Highway 1 at Watling. Also I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road. I-26 eastbound at I-20. Parkland Road at Parkview Drive. Trotter near Traveler Lane still being causing a little bit of an issue there. And Spears Creek Church Road at Highway 1. Looking for a warming trend for the next couple days. Today should be 64, tomorrow 74, 80 on Wednesday before we hit back to the mid-60s for the remainder of the week. So we'll enjoy this. Right now, 58 on 107.5 The Game.
$8:34 as we slowly start to wrap up our Monday morning episode. Again, most things that if you've missed, you can always go to our podcast page and check it out. Go to the 107.5 The Game website and check out our podcast page where Jen gets everything up from anything you may have missed, such as any of the segments earlier from Jamie Bradford, where we talked a little baseball this morning, talked about South Carolina turning down the NIT, and that's been a topic of conversation, and we'll get into some other stuff. We'll get back into more baseball tomorrow. We got a lot of Paul Maneri sound, and we'll get into that tomorrow as we get you ready for the South Carolina-Charleston game. I want to remind you, go to the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Go to 1075thegame.com and register the pot at $150 after this past weekend. All you got to do to win the cash in the pot, go to 1075thegame.com and get registered, and you could win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. 803-404-6100. A couple other things from around sports coming up in about 25 minutes, I reckon, about 25 minutes. We should get the conclusion of the Players' Championship down at Sawgrass, Preston, and this is a tournament I watched a good bit of this weekend. We talked a little bit about Rory McIlroy and taking a phone from an amateur golfer on Wednesday. Well, it appears McIlroy maybe picked up some tips on that phone, because he is going to have a 3-hole playoff against J.J. Spawn, and the aggregate score will be the winner.
What's the temperature on Rory? People like Rory. They're cheering for Rory.
This is my opinion from what I have seen. I could be wrong. He is becoming quite controversial because there's a lot of people who want, in my opinion, there's a lot of people I think want to like him because he became the face of the PGA Tour.
He stood up for virtue.
He stood up. He could have taken who knows how many millions of dollars and gone to live and had no pressure and very few television cameras. He could have taken the money, and he didn't. And he stood up to live, and he stood up to Greg Norman, and he said this is the right thing to do. And then the PGA Tour stabbed him in the back.
Correct.
They literally pulled the rug out from under him, and maybe if he had to do it all over again, he would take $200, $300, $400 million. Like John Rahm did, or somebody else, Dustin Johnson or Phil Mickelson, and go over there and, just play golf around the world and not have any stress or worries or cares. He would be great. But he's whiny. Like, he's kind of a baby. He's very thin-skinned. He gets annoyed a little bit too easy. And, yes, he has a knack for choking right now. Like a big a mental block or something. If he wins today, maybe that helps him, especially preparing for the Masters. But, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I think people want to like him, but he's making it hard on himself to be liked.
Gotcha.
So that's what I think. But Rory McIlroy and J.J. Spawn set for a 3-hole aggregate playoff later on. Well, coming up in about 20 minutes this morning after a big rain delay yesterday. And so they'll see how that goes. But that was a really fun tournament from the weekend. Winds were gusting around on Saturday. It's a bucket list item. It's without, I think, you talk about like niche. We talk about like we'll do this in a little more than a month, like the Kentucky Derby. I've been to the Masters plenty of times, so I guess don't have that on maybe that's, if I hadn't been to the Masters, I'd say you ought to go to the Masters. But Sawgrass would definitely be somewhere that I'll plan to be attending in the very near future. So you had that from the weekend, as well as baseball, South Carolina basketball, and so forth, and so on. And we'll get into also maybe a little bit of soccer coming up in a few weeks, because I did see Tony Annan's Newcastle team. I think if you remember when he was, were you in here when he was in here that day? You weren't. You weren't. He was talking about his Newcastle team taking on Liverpool, and I believe he was over there yesterday for that match, and that was a big win for his club.
Newcastle, I saw the headline that they got that one.
They got that one. So he was very excited, so we'll catch up. So there's just some of the other things. Oh, and by the way, we mentioned it. NASCAR race, pretty good over there. Aside from Denny Hamlin, Jen, I didn't get to check out much of the Las Vegas race yesterday, but not a bad weekend for the NASCAR group.
No, I mean, as far as how we all finished, we kind of had mixed reviews on our finishes, but the race overall was kind of quirky. There were various penalties that were assigned and things like that, but good racing for the most part.
Josh Berry gets the win there in his first career Cup Series win.
Great for the Wood Brothers Racing team. They've been around for a very long time, so that was very fun.
So we'll get more into it on Thursday with our picks there. I don't want to jinx myself. I've been humbled the last few years, but due to William Byron finishing 4th and Denny Hamlin finishing 25th, my 5 points now puts me in the lead. 18 points to 17 for Jen, 16 for Reggie, and you and Josh each with 14. So back in my rightful place there as leader of that. 803-404-6100. Again, also we've talked basketball and NIT, Preston Thorne. And we'll come back. We'll do this. We'll come back. We'll take a final look at that, because just an interesting situation to watch unfold yesterday.
We were on it. If you listen to the show, we were on it.
I believe we have some audio. We have some audio. We'll play some audio from us knowing what was going on and let Preston remind you. Sometimes we actually know what we're talking about.
Correct.
You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It is the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. Significant events happened over the weekend. But if you listen to the show, which I hope you all do, you know that we were on this. And there are occasions when we are on things on the head. Yes, on Friday, we may or may not have been joking around about the text messages that were going around the team, asking who wanted to play, who all was going to be there. Come to find out, South Carolina, mysteriously, because, Bill, you were cooking on this one. We don't know if we actually were invited.
Yeah.
But we declined anyway. We stated that this was a possibility and that something would happen. However, Bill, you made a very declarative statement. And this is why talking on the phone, on the radio for 3 hours can get you in trouble sometimes. Jen, can we get a replay of what Bill said was not going to happen on Friday? What y'all boys doing? Y'all going to play?
And let me just say this, too. You can't, going to Jen's point, you can't turn down this bid. Yeah. You cannot. You can't. I mean, you can.
803-404-6100. Would you want to go play in this NIT tournament after this season?
These guys have already had burgers and milkshakes. Like, uh-oh.
They've lived a life in Nashville. They probably said per diem money. Hour 2 is on the way. Yeah, that was from Friday. Turns out they can. Turns out they can, and they did. Not only can they did, in fact, do it. I can't explain. Not that it mattered, and I preferably, as a fan, I would have liked to see them play again. I know I'm in the minority. I told Preston on the last Wednesday, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I questioned myself for wanting to see them, but I kind of wanted to see them play again. It's like a bad car wreck that you just have to tune back into to see. And I truthfully, I would like to know more about the process behind the scenes. Like, how much was there, like, a group text with players? Did they take a player vote and players like, no? Did the SEC step in and be like, this doesn't seem like a good idea? Did Lamont Paris step in? Like, I saw some people say that there were issues with the using the basketball arena on Tuesday night for the opening round game, with having a Friday game for the women, logistical issues. So my question is, like, did we just who is the one? I'd really, really be fascinated. Lamont Paris has put a statement out, but who is the one who legitimately is like, no, not happening?
If I had to guess, I think it came from on high, the highest high. I do think because everybody has a boss. Lamont has a boss. Jeremiah Donati has somebody he has to answer to, and I think they all answer to the top. And I think the signal was given, hey, let's not do this as a unit. And
the other part to this is I can't help but wonder, like, was it a group decision? Because I'm guessing LSU couldn't be like, yeah, we'll play. Oh, South Carolina's not going to play, or vice versa. South Carolina's be like, yeah, we'll play. Oh, LSU, you're not going.
Also,
like, it's
so fascinating because also when they get the call, they're like, oh, we're not going? Okay. Whew. All right.
Yeah.
Or did Jeremiah Donati pull the old, let me look at my calendar and saw some event on Tuesday at Colonial Life? He was like, can't do it. Sorry, we got something.
Yeah.
There's something here.
Yeah.
I know it. Look at the calendar.
Gotta
wash my hair.
Something's happening at the CLA. Something.
There are reasons beyond my understanding of why they did it. And do I think it was a good idea? No. Again, I think by Friday, we will have some answers, not on what happened with the NIT, but what this roster is starting to look like in terms of next year with returners. We know the 4 freshmen are coming in. You know who's leaving, and Jacoby Wright and some of the seniors. We'll see what happens with Colin Murray Bowles. But again, I'd have liked to seen them play and let Arden Conyers, Cam Scott, Jordan Butler in particular, 3 guys who I'm pretty sure will be back, get 20, 25 minutes of action. And I don't know what a loss. You mentioned Colgate.
That was Steve.
That was Steve.
Call.
Okay,
Steve said we don't want to get washed by Colgate.
I want to say I think you brought up, who was it you were bringing up with Middle Tennessee? You brought it up?
We were possible against Middle Tennessee.
Chattanooga, Lamont Parrish's old school, is playing Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee's hosting as a 4 seed. So I can't help but wonder, like, did they see the pairing on that? It was like, no, that's a bad idea.
Have you figured out who CSUN is yet?
No, I haven't, and I've got to.
We could have lost to Loyola Chicago. That might have been rough. Or if we would have been a 4 seed, any of the 4 seeds, Jacksonville State, potential Gamecock versus Gamecock matchup again.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. As I always say, I personally, my opinion, I would have liked to have seen them play. I do completely understand, though, why they did this. By the way, I'm trying to talk and look this up. You said CSUN?
CSUN.
Who are they playing? Which CSUN? CSUN at Stanford.
At Stanford.
Sounds like something that should be a juice box.
CSUN.
We have no idea. Don't want you would that Cal State Northridge. The Matadors, the well-known Matadors of Cal State Northridge.
That's right, the Matadors. I forgot about them.
Okay, yeah. Probably definitely wouldn't want to lose to them if we were having to do that much research. But, I'm surprised. I get it. I do get it. I mean, but I also look at it, and I'm kind of with Jamie Bradford on this. Winning the NIT does nothing for you and your program. I got that. It means nothing. But maybe you could sell it as like, hey, look, we were in the most difficult conference in the country. Or do you use this to be like, no, we played in the most difficult conference in the country and we don't want a piece of anything else?
That's what the SEC did, I believe. If I had to take a guess, I think they said, listen, we've already cemented ourselves as the best conference ever in the history of basketball in the world. Let's not have any of these other 2 teams go out there and possibly ruin it by losing to somebody who's in a lesser conference, and that deflates our argument. So I think that's what ended up happening. We obviously, pieces of information will come out if anybody wants to dig on that. Trust me, not a lot of people are very sad right now.
It's interesting. A couple people weighed in. One texter weighs in and says, "I think it shows a weak mentality. Don't they love the game? Why don't they play? Why?"
Let me stop that right there. It's not from the players. Look higher. Jeremiah Donati, Greg Sankey. Let's stop blaming the people at the lowest rung of this ladder. There are people way higher that are making these decisions.
And I'll leave you with this text message because, of course, we use social media as a way to figure things out. Text always, and I tweeted last night that my theory is CMB didn't want to play, so therefore they decided not to play. And CMB's brother liked my tweet. There you go. We got to the bottom of it.
Perfect.
Y'all have a great day. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and it is that proven history that is your assurance that they will get the job done in a timely and professional manner. They'll make sure that everything is taken care of and that leak that you may have had in your roof won't bother you anymore. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. That's 803-356-1919. Mid-State Roofing is there to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with a maintenance contract. They design and install bonded systems with a protective guarantee that keeps your operation dry and running long into the future. So give them a phone call. Set up that maintenance contract today, 803-356-1919. You can visit them on the web for more information, midstateroofing.com. Again, give them a phone call, 803-356-1919, and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.